Audrey, shalom. I use my Megillah to hold up my laptop higher. Okay. That's better. All right. Lights. That is better. We got a little bit more quietness today. The little mini Murphs. I'm going back home. Do I still recommend this book also? I'm gonna be honest. I don't quite know yet because I have been deeply involved with OAHSPE at the moment that I have not went through it anymore from the first day I opened OAHSPE up. But I'll let you know. Remember, this is the one they say we can't read out loud. So from what I read through, from what I did read through, it was really interesting. But I don't know. Just since I've opened OAHSPE, I just haven't picked it back up. That is my honesty, y'all truth. Okay. So, beautiful people, happy Monday. Let's get started so we can get some more of this in. Hold on. Love, bomb, blessings. Page 1. That was it. Okay. Yes.
Guess what?
What?
I got my watch from the Blue-Eyed Demon, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I saw you looking at this one. I was like, oh, okay, come through. You didn't upgrade it yourself. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say this. If I got a girl and I give her something, I'm gonna want it back all.
Don't be an Indian giver, boy. Get out.
Yeah,
We ain't raised you to be that way. First of all,
I'm not
don't be
gonna
tricking
fork
off
up
your
my money on some
giving it to no
technology,
girl
right?
Anyway, worry about yourself.
That's like,
Worry
bro, I'm
about
telling
yourself.
you, even if I buy a girl some shoes, I will take them back. Literally.
Listen, you got your book. Hey, you got your book. You got your book. First of all, get out of here. Don't be an Indian giver, right? Like I just said, don't be tricking off your money on females.
It's all good, because I'll be single till I'm like 30 something.
Look, okay. Let me just see. Look, I ain't telling you to do all that. You gonna live that.
What you talking about? I don't want no kids. What you talking about? Come on.
Okay.
I'm be honest. Don't be surprised if I'm the kid that doesn't have kids in the family.
Okay, Jeremiah. Anita, shalom. Set apart, living, happy day. Kendra, shalom, shalom. Vinette, greetings. All right, beautiful people. It is Monday, August the 22nd, 2022. August 22, 2020. Yeah, I was about to mess it up. It is August the 22nd, 2022. Day 192 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1210. Today, I'll see you. Y'all have fun. Today we're picking up on page 501, chapter 2, in the book of Cosmogony and Prophecy. Y'all is getting real good. Look, I had to go pop this back out to see if she started explaining some of the math that I had kind of, begin to try to work out in my head about some of this stuff. But it's pretty good. This definitely book of Cosmology and Prophecy. This right here, Time of the Quickening, she started getting into a lot of little details of this, right? It is so good. It is really good. Okay, Tikva. Shalom, shalom, Mom. Shalom, shalom. Father, you are so meticulous in your creation that it blows our mind daily. Okay. Chapter 2, page 501. There are two known things in the universe, eth and corpore. The former is the solvent of the latter. For comparison, take a lump of table salt, which, though white, is impervious to the sight of man. Cast it into water, and it is lost to sight, though it still existeth, the sight of man can see through it. Earth substance, as such, is equally soluble in eth. And the great Ethereal firmament is thus constituted, being a dense solution of corpore. Oh, that's good. A dense solution. Okay, of corpore. In the main, etheria is transparent, but in some places translucent, and in others opaque, right? Look, okay, so which would explain, maybe y'all experience, but which will explain to me why some figures that I see look yeah, I think it's translucent, right? Remember, look like the Terminator. I forget which Terminator it was. Remember the second Terminator they had came on, to where the first Terminator, which was the bad Terminator, became the good Terminator, and he was trying to save the dude he was trying to kill, his, that other Terminator, right? There's a portion in there where it's like he melts, he becomes translucent, like this silvery, clear, watery looking type dude. That's like translucent. Sometimes I see spirits and they look like that. Matter of fact, that whole video that I did that has the title Julian Spirits, that figure that was holding me down that I could see, it was translucent, right? Okay. And that was like in real time, seeing with my own eyes, not like seeing in the spiritual realm. That's what I saw. Okay. I'll read through again. Earth substance as such is equally soluble in eth, and the great Ethereal firmament is thus constituted, being a dense solution of corpore. In the main, etheria is transparent, but in some places translucent, and in others opaque. Here are iron and copper and granite and water and lead and clay and nitrogen and oxygen and hydrogen and various other kinds of corporeal substances known on the earth. And besides these, millions of things not known on the earth. The earth holdeth them in solution, even after the manner that the air holdeth the substance of the clouds, which is water in solution. And that some clouds are so rarefied as to be imperceptible, whilst others are opaque and even black. So are the comparative conditions of etheria, of which matters more will be said further on. In the case of a vortex in etheria, that is, after the manner of a whirlwind on the earth. Well, I've been doing so much thinking about this vortex and looking at stuff. Like, we are literally multiple vortexes within a vortex, with vortexes in our body. And I started thinking about my, let me just show it to you. Hold on. Belinda Brown rising. Look, so remember how it says some vortices are open at both ends, and some vortices are closed. When I was further thinking about it last night, of course, I had to go to like my little charts, my little chakra janks, right? On this particular one, where it has rainbow chakra centers, like your chakras are like swirling wheels of energy, right? Is how they describe it. But there's also like swirling fields of energy around you, like call it aura. Some people call it an egg, and they got other terms for it. But it's also like this picture right here. They show you 7 chakras, but there are way more than 7 chakras. They just really talk about the 7 most of the time, right, within the body. But the other ones are like around the body and like come out, right? So the vortices, the swirling energies like go up through the body, like sideways through the body, like in and out and around. And then after the crown, you got the third eye chakra, the crown chakra. And above the crown chakra, you have multiple chakras that continue going up. But that right there, you have to completely have your whole spirit aligned and all that great stuff in order to even begin to experience the things that happen on the higher levels of chakras, right? So let me get a little bit closer. I'm gonna see if you can see it. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to see if both of y'all can. I'm trying to hold it up to where Facebook and YouTube can see it. Okay, I can see it on both of them this way. Okay, so right, and it has, hold on, let me get a little closer. It has arrows, and I'll take a picture of it. It has arrows showing the direction of how the whirlwind or the energy would be flowing, right? And it goes in like a whirlwind motion, like a tornado, right? And just in and out, and then up through the body, and all the way up it goes up. I have another one. I don't remember where it is, but it lists, you can Google it though. You can put in like crown, you can put in like chakras above the crown chakra, and it'll get into like the atmosphere and what's around you and all that good stuff, right? You can get this. I just ordered these from Amazon, right? They are, what do you call them? You can put like laminated chakra charts like that, right? So I got a few different ones, but I like this one. This is really, really good. But even down here, oh yeah, this gets into the, detail of the 7 chakras. But also down here in the corner, it also tells you like, yo, our body is really an instrument for our spirits if we would clean it up and learn how to use it, right? Listen, hold on. So right here, like if you get up, okay, so you know how scripture always tell you, and it's just a saying that you hear, the early bird catches the worm. Like that is really a thing, right? Not necessarily that you be catching a worm, but you'll be able to perceive activity in the spiritual realm earlier hours in the morning when it's quiet, right? And you're probably more centered after your rest if but here it shows you like the hours of the day, right? And it's color coded just like your chakras. And it shows you here when like each one is like really active, all that good stuff. But it also, y'all know about Kabbalah, right? Kabbalah shows you the same thing. And up here, you have I don't have a big one of these. I don't even know if you can see this. But anyway, and I'll post a bigger picture like the Kabbalah chart. Hold on. Can you see that? Remember we was learning about the Merkaba or the Merkaba? I don't even think y'all can see it. That looks like it's getting blurry to me. But anyway, I'm going to take a clear picture of it, and I'll make a note. But you will see all of this. They showing it to you. They just using different terms for all of this stuff, right? And especially if you're really spiritual, you spend time meditating and studying it just a little bit. It's really easy to pick up and understand, especially when you start learning about the vortex. This is like the first thing that started coming to mind, right? Look, see, I didn't even realize that right here they have a Merkaba here, right? It's swirling vortexes or whirlwinds, right? And they spin in different directions. So you can create a Merkaba around yourself. It's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, but it's really, really interesting. But our bodies truly are instruments, and there are smaller vortices within a bigger vortex of the Earth's vortex, and the Earth's vortex is a smaller vortex within the main vortex of the sun. All these, this is so amazing. Hold on. Okay, so I'm still studying it, so I can't give you a whole bunch of details. Okay, shalom. But I'll give you the link. You could, like I said, you could just Google it on Amazon. Not Google it. Well, search for it on Amazon, and it'll pull it up, right? I'll leave the links for the ones I got. They probably got some better ones by now because I didn't have them for a few years. All right. Okay, so let's go back. Verse 5 on page 501. In the case of a vortex in ethereal, that is, after the manner of a whirlwind on the earth, the corporal solutions are propelled toward the center thereof in greater density. When it is sufficiently dense to manifest light and shadow, it is called a comet or a nebula. When still more dense, it is a planet. When as a comet or nebula, The M vortex hath not attained to an orbit of its own. It is carried in the currents of the master vortex, which currents are elliptic, parabolic, and hyperbolic. See plate 56, cut C, figure 4. Hence the so-called eccentric travel of comets. Okay, so let's look at plate 56 again real quick. It's one of the ones that we took a picture of. Cut C. Cut C. Oh, figure 4. Okay. On page 495. Here. And it's like backwards Z. No, is that a backwards Z? No. And this Z formation shape right here. This is cut C. Down here, this figure right here. It look like the eye. Well, it's under the eye looking one. That's that one right there. Okay. I'll read verse 7 again. When as a comet or nebula, the M vortex hath not attained to an orbit of its own, it is carried in the currents of the master vortex, which currents are elliptic, parabolic, and hyperbolic. See plate 56, cut C, figure 4. Hence the so-called eccentric travel of comets. At this age of the comet, it showeth nearly the configuration of its own vortex, its tail being the M vortexia. If it appear to the east of the sun, its tail turneth eastward. If west of the sun, it turneth westward. Two directions of power are thus manifested, and also two powers. First, that the vortex of the sun hath power from the east to the west, and from the west to the east, to which the comet is subjected. Second, that the comet hath a vortex of its own, which is sufficient under the circumstances to maintain the general form of the comet. Remember, it holds it together. The ordinary comet hath its own tail away from the sun, but some comets have two tails, one toward the sun and one away. The case of Bella's comet, I think it's Bella, we'll call it Bella, B-I-E-L-A apostrophe S. In the case of Bella's comet in the year 4 BK, which was broken whilst the observer was looking on, is sufficient evidence of the subpower of the comet vortex. And after in the year 4 BK, it's reference letter E. Hold on, first. Before we read that, the case of Bella's comet before it has reference number 6, and down at the bottom that says, in the case of Bella's comet. Just the previous version added in before the. So it said, in the case of Bella's comet. So this version says, the case of Bella's comet. Okay, so now let's go to reference letter E for 4BK, which is found on page 515. E says, elsewhere in OAHSPE, it implies that Cosmon started in 1848. Therefore, 4BK should be 1844. Oh, okay. So you know what? Yesterday somebody answered that. I said, I don't know what the K is. Somebody said they think it's Cosmon. Clearly it is Cosmon. So 4BK is 4 years before Cosmon, which would be, if Cosmon started in the year 1848, 4 years before that would be 1844. That's easy enough math, right? It's amazing wonders. Shalom. Okay. Elsewhere in OAHSPE, you said shalom. Elsewhere in OAHSPE, it implies that Cosmon started in 1848. Therefore, 4BK should be 1844. However, Bella's comet was seen breaking apart in 1846, and the editor's note in the 1882 edition states that 4BK is 1846. Either the text should read 2BK or Cosmon began in 1850. Okay, so let's go back to page 501. And I'll read verse 9, the whole verse 9 over again, which includes Bella's comment. Two directions of power are thus manifested, and also two powers. First, that the vortex of the sun hath power from the east to the west, and from the west to the east, to which the comet is subjected. Second, that the comet hath a vortex of its own, which is sufficient under the circumstances to maintain the general form of the comet. The ordinary comet hath its tail away from the sun, but some comets have two tails, one toward the sun and one away. In the case of Bella's comet in year 4 BK, which was broken whilst the observer was looking on, is sufficient evidence of the sub-power of the comet vortex. Interior nebula is generally described as comets, whilst exterior nebula is usually called nebula. Nevertheless, all such solutions of corpora are of like nature, being as the beginning or as the incomplete condensation of a planet. They do not at all, nor half of them, ripen into planets, but their vortices are often broken, and they return again into sublimated solutions and are lost to mortal sight. But nowhere in Ethera is there a solution of corpora sufficient to put itself in motion, nor sufficient to condense itself, nor to provide the road of its travel. But its road of travel showeth the direction of the lines of the sun's vortex, save and except in such case when a comet's vortex cometh within the vortex of another planet's vortex of greater power than its own. What? Let me read that again. Because I don't know why that made me think about a man and a woman engaging. Listen. But no, I'm reading 12 again. Listen. A man and a woman coming together. The man put a smaller portion of his vortex into a vortex of tunnel, a whirlwind-like fixture of the woman, right? Listen, vortex is everywhere. But nowhere in Ethera is there a solution of corpora sufficient to put itself in motion, nor sufficient to condense itself, nor to provide the road of its travel. But its road of travel showeth the direction of the lines of the sun's vortex, save and except in such case when a comet's vortex cometh within the vortex of another planet's vortex of greater power than its own, right? So a woman's vortex would definitely be enough power to cause the flow of the man's vortex and create another whole human vortex. Shebrew, shalom, shalom, look. Okay, verse 13. As a cyclone or whirlwind on the earth traveleth with the general... Yeah, no. I tried to, but it wasn't working. But I'll get it there. Don't worry about it. Ain't nobody spending your money. I'll transfer it from your checking to your savings, boy. It's still in your account. Look, okay. As a cyclone or whirlwind on the earth traveleth with the general current of the wind, so travel the sub-vortices in Ethera within the axial lines of vortices in chief. Let me read it again. As a cyclone or whirlwind on the earth traveleth with the general current of the wind, so travel the sub-vortices in Ethera within the axial lines of vortices in chief. Whether within the sun's vortex or external thereto, the rules apply so far as nebula or comets are concerned and the vortices that carry them. Axial velocity belongeth to all of them, and the tendency of all of them is to orbits, the which they attain to or not, according to their strength compared to the matter. When a nebulous planet is sufficiently dense to have its corpora polarized, but so that its polarity corresponded to the polarity of the master, it is transparent and possesseth no eclipse power. But when the nebula is polarized transversely, it is as a cloud in Ethera, with power to eclipse stars and even to eclipse the sun itself, provided it be within the solar vortex. Of external nebula of sufficient size to be self-sustaining and to ultimately become planets, there are at present visible from the earth more than 8,000. These are in the process of globe making, even as the earth was made. Of nebula within the sun's vortex, where they are usually called comets, there are upward of 8 or 10 ones every There are upward of 8 or 10 new ones every year. Some of them survive, Some of them survive but a few months, some a few years, some 100 years, and some even 1,000 or more years. But in all cases, when the vortex of one of them bursteth, the corpora of the comet flieth instantly into dissolution, more sublimated, and is lost to mortal sight. Where nebula is transparent and lieth between the earth and master center, it is not discernible either with the naked eye or with a telescope. Amongst the most sublimated forms of corpora in solution are nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. When a subvortex or even a stratum of 10 or 20 million miles, when a subvortex or even a stratum of 10 or 20 million miles of this solution lieth between the earth and the sun center, and an observation of the sun be taken, the observer is apt to erroneously suppose he hath discovered nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen in the sun atmosphere or photosphere. And if the solution contain iron and gold and platina and other metals, the observer is apt to erroneously suppose he hath discovered these things within the photosphere or the atmosphere of the sun. Wherefore, all observations made to determine such matters require that the observer shall first understand what lieth between the earth and the sun at the time of observation. But some of these sub-vortices in Ethera require 40 years' time in which to drag their whole length away from the line of observation, so that in no case is the observation of any value, even though it be taken in the breadth of the earth, unless it covereth a period greater than 40 years. But it also so happened that, perhaps, when such an immense vortex is about passing away from the line, that another one, equally large and perhaps of different density of solution, cometh within the line. And it may thus occur that hundreds of years will elapse before a good view of the sun can be obtained. Some of these traveling plateaus are opaque, dark, so that the sun is kept in a dim eclipse for a year or two, and sometimes for hundreds of years. Wherefore, philosophers have erroneously attributed their observations as having proved certain gases and certain metals within the sun's atmosphere. The same remarks apply to observations made of the stars and even of the moon. In the case of light being manifested in a complete steel magnet, the major retention is at the angle of two legs, and the minor light at the terminus of the north leg, negative pole. But in an eccentric magnet, or horseshoe, the two lights are manifest at the terminus of the two legs. A complete planetary vortex is a globe. Globe, about to say. Did I say that right today? Globe. It's globe. Yeah, not glob today. Here, globe. A complete planetary vortex is a globe, or nearly so, and is manifested like a complete magnet. But an immature vortex, as in the case of a comet or other small vortex, will manifest light at both poles. Say so. And sometimes in the middle, if it hath attained to power to manufacture light of its own. In some cases, the comet or the nebula is not sufficiently condensed to produce light of its own, but containeth corpore in a gaseous state, which of itself may have infinitesimal polarities reflecting the normal light of the master vortex. Go ahead. We'll take a break from all that scientific talk while he gets some ice. Cosmine cow. Peace, peace. Okay. I'm kind of keeping up with this a little bit. I'm just still blown away by the whole vortex thing and me now noticing vortices everywhere. It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay, verse 26, page 502. By observing the new moon, it will be seen that the light portion thereof describeth a larger circle than the dark portion. The bulge of the light side of the moon always pointeth toward the sun. It is an error to say that light cometh from the sun and striketh on the moon and is then reflected on the earth. As previously shown, there is no such thing or substance as light, but that which is called light is a manifestation of vortexian power. Also, that the sea vortex is comparatively all one light with a central focus. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my spot right here. And after sea vortex is reference letter F. So let's hop back to page 515. And F says the term sea, as in sea, apostrophe, vortex. The term sea, as applied to words, is equivalent to the word major. The term M, as applied to words, is equivalent to minor. Did I say the word M or the term M? Let me read it again. The term sea, as applied to words, is equivalent to the word major. The term M, as applied to words, is equivalent to minor. 1882 edition. Okay, so let's go back. Let me read verse 26 over again. By observing the new moon, it will be seen that the light portion thereof describeth a larger circle than the dark portion. The bulge of the light side of the moon always pointeth toward the sun. It is an error to say that light cometh from the sun and striketh on the moon, and is then reflected on the earth. As previously shown, there is no such thing or substance as light, but that which is called light is a manifestation of vortexian power. Also, that the sea vortex is comparatively all one light with a central focus. Okay, so, all right, love you. The reason one side of the moon is dark and one light is because it hath a positive and negative manifestation of the sea vortexia, for the moon also manufactureth its own light. It's definitely different from the book of Enoch, to where the book of Enoch, I had to stretch, sorry. Well, the book of Enoch says that the moon gets its light, poured into it from the sun. Okay, we still looking. I'm apt to believe this more than that now, simply because all the things I've been able to prove throughout this already, right? Look, okay. Or maybe it's just, maybe they're both right. Maybe I'm just still lacking information on the complete. We'll just say I'm still lacking information because I'm sure there's a piece, or it could have been screwed with. It could have, but I think for this one in the book of Enoch, I think I might be missing some information. All right, but we'll pull it all together before too long. Okay. The reason one side of the moon is dark and one light is because it hath a positive and negative manifestation of the sea vortexia, for the moon also manufactureth its own light. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to come back to this, so I need to highlight it so I can find it. Y'all so thick. Shalom, brother. Hold on. Oh, look, hold on, too. I think I need to apologize to somebody. I don't think she came in yet. I just realized yesterday, intuitive goat is a female. That's Deshawn. Look, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday. It could have been the day before the Sabbath. Shebrew said, Deshawn. And I think it was after she made the comment. If she would have been and told her kids to shut the H up, right? And I was cracking up. It was a funny comment, right? And so I was like, Deshawn is intuitive goat Deshawn? But I'm like, well, that could be used for male or female. So I went looking. Yeah, I remembered it yesterday. I'm like, holy crap. Because I think one day I said, brother, I am so sorry. Deshawn or intuitive goat is a female, just in case y'all didn't. Y'all probably all know that. Like, I completely forgot that Selah had interviewed her. I completely forgot that was her. Okay, I'm sorry, sis, if you're here. If you watch this later, I'm sorry, right? Intuitive goat is a female. Okay. Danielle, shalom, shalom. Play rock with you this morning. The song. Okay, look, come on, let me keep reading. I'm trying to take advantage of all this time where it's quiet. My grandbaby's ain't here. All right. Verse 27. As the moon advanceth to the next quarter, the same discrepancy in the two apparent sizes is manifest, and this continueth until it is full moon. It is an error to say that dark bodies appear smaller and light bodies larger because of absorption or refraction. The cause is not absorption or refraction or reflection, but of manufacture. Light bodies, so-called, manufacture light of their own, ever so infinitesimal, which is as an envelope external to themselves. The eye of the observer seeth this as well as the corporal body, and consequently it appeareth larger than it really is. The same rule applieth in regard to the sun and his photosphere, and to comets, and to all bodies that manifest light. Suitable deduction must be made in endeavoring to determine the size of a planet. Shadow is usually divided into two expressions: umbra, UMBRA, as the shadow of a man standing in sunlight, and darkness, as the shadow of the earth in a cloudy night. Nevertheless, they are but one and the same thing, but in different degrees, both of which are here included in the word shadow. In a clear night, when the full moon shineth, two conditions are manifest on the earth. First, that a shadow is vertical to the moon, and the light side is not as light as when the sun shineth at noon. What? Read that again. Shadow is usually divided into two expressions: umbra, as the shadow of a man standing in sunlight, and darkness, as the shadow of the earth in a cloudy night. Nevertheless, they are but one and the same thing, but in different degrees, both of which are here included in the word shadow. In a clear night, when the full moon shineth, two conditions are manifest on the earth. First, that a shadow is vertical to the moon, and the light side is not as light as when the sun shineth at noon. Okay, I get it. The density of shadow from sunlight and the density of shadow from the moonlight correspond exactly to the comparative difference between sunlight and moonlight. When it is full moon at midday, the light of the sun, so-called, is no greater because of the moon's presence. Observe the difference, however, on a given object if the ray from a mirror facing the sun be added to the ordinary sunlight. Hence, it is an error to attribute the moon's rays as being reflected from the sun to the earth. If it be premised that the light face of the moon is not a mirror but is opaque, observe the following result from the moon when it is half full. The half of the moon is equivalent to half a globe. If the light of the sun fell on the bulge, the rays thus landed on the moon would cause that part of the moon to be a trifle more than 4 times lighter or brighter than on the slopes. If an observation of this kind, and if the light were borrowed from the sun, 2 kinds of rays would result. The bulge of the moon would afford a center for the rays to emanate in every direction, and the slope rays would refract at the same angle as received from the sun. The fact is, however, there is no intense center. The fact is, however, there is no intense center light manifested on the moon's surface in the place where it directly faceth the sun. Hence, there is no possibility of the light of the moon being produced by light from the sun or from the sun's center. The light of the moon faceth the sun's center, but the latter is not the cause thereof. The cause is the emissions of positive and negative currents from the moon's vortex, and they manifest in the vortexia of the master. The same rule applies to all planets whose vortices are negative. Chapter 3, page 503. Here followeth the method of manufacturing light and heat as they are on the earth and moon and sun and all other planets. The half of the earth's vortex, for example, which faceth toward the sun, is a concave lens to the earth. A similar lens, but far wider, is at the sun's center. The convex faces of the 2 lenses are toward each other forever. They are ethereally connected by solutions of corpore, needles linear in position. They are ethereally connected by solutions of corpore needles linear in position. See plate 56, cut C, figure 5. Let's go back to this same plate. Cut C, figure 5. Oh, okay. This one. The 2 half moons on page 495. Here. Yes. Hold on. I'm trying to hold it up so both of y'all can see it. Okay. Verse 3, page 503. The vortex is larger than the earth, so that polar lights are possible on the shadow side, and the brilliancy of the polar lights are proportionately less than daylight at noon in the tropics, exactly in correspondence to the concentration of the rays by a lens of the magnitude referred to. The vortexia rising up out of the earth at night is negative, or less than the vortexia descending in daylight, and their conjunctive line is near the earth's surface. Hence, 5 or 6 miles altitude is intense cold, whilst 500 or 600 is so cold that mortals could not possibly measure it. In the early days of the earth, when there was more heat emitted from the earth than at present, it also rose to a greater multitude, but it was nevertheless thrown back to a great extent every day, even after the same manner it is today by the vortexian lens referred to. As of the heat, so also of the light. In the sum of all the universe, there was and is now. Ain't no way in the world Dennis wrote all this. Listen. Verse 6. In the sum of all the, like intelligence wrote this, in the sum of all the universe, there was and is now and ever shall be the same latent amount of heat and light. The vortex in formation driveth them to the center for a period of time. Nevertheless, a time cometh when the heat and the light escape outward. And though the vortexian lens recast them back in a measure, thus producing day and warmth on the face of the earth, yet there is ever a trifling loss toward perpetual coldness and darkness. This great hemispherical lens, atmosphere, not only thus manufactureth light and heat, but it also affordeth man the means of seeing the sun and moon and stars. It hath the power also of magnifying millions of comparatively dense Etherian worlds so that man can see through them. The student should consider this from the standpoint of magnifying, The student should consider this from the standpoint of a magnifying lens in a microscope, which has power to distend many things so one can see through their fibers, which to the naked eye seem dense. For Etheria is not merely so rarefied as mortals suppose. Without the earth's atmosphere lens, man could not even see the moon nor stars, and the sun itself would seem as a pale red star. As the vortex of the earth is thus a lens to the earth, so is the moon's vortex to the moon, and so also of the sun and all other stars and planets where light and heat are manifested. When the moon is half full, a dim outline of the shadow side of the moon is to be seen with the naked eye. By this, philosophers have erroneously called the earth's shine, for they ignorantly believe the lights of the earth was reflected on the moon. The real cause of this sublight on the moon, in consequence of the action of the sublens on the moon, facing the earth's vortex, which operateth after the same manner as the other. When the moon produceth a full eclipse of the sun, by which philosophers ignorant, keep getting tongue-tied. When the moon produceth a full eclipse of the sun, by which philosophers ignorantly believed the light and the heat of the sun were cut off from the earth, it causeth darkness on the earth by breaking the linear connection betwixt the earth's vortex and the sun's center, so that the positive current in the earth's vortex is cut off, and that part would otherwise be a lens let me start over. Verse 10. When the moon produceth a full eclipse of the sun, by which philosophers ignorantly believed the light and heat of the sun were cut off from the earth, it causeth darkness on the earth by breaking the linear connection betwixt the earth's vortex at the sun's center, so that the positive current in the earth's vortex is cut off, and that part would otherwise be a lens becometh negative in its action in linear space. I kind of understand what it said. Hold on, listen. See plate 56, cut C, figure 6. I'm gonna wait till after I look at this plate again. Figure 6. Annual eclipse of 1836, Corona, Bailey's beads. Okay. On page 495 again. This picture right here is showing the eclipse. Total eclipse of the sun. Let me read this whole verse again. We'll fold this. Okay. When the moon produceth a full eclipse of the sun, by which philosophers ignorantly believe that the light and the heat of the sun were cut off from the earth, it causeth darkness on the earth by breaking the linear connection betwixt the earth's vortex and the sun's center, so that the positive current of the earth's vortex is cut off, and that part would otherwise be a lens becometh negative in its action in the linear space. Okay, see plate 56, cut C, figure 6, eclipse of the sun. But when the eclipse falleth far in the north or south part of the earth only, then the action of the moon's shadow will fall in the direction of the earth's lens, so that a sublens is impossible. Whereas were there such a thing as earth's shine in time of total eclipse of the sun, the equatorial light would make the moon shine at that time also. As light and heat and magnetism and electricity are all one and the same thing, which are the manifestation of the vortexian currents under different conditions, the student must not lose sight of the fact that none of these so-called things are things in fact, that is, entities of themselves, separately or combined. The student must not lose sight of the fact that none of these so-called things are things in fact, that is, entities of themselves, separately or combined. Vortexia can be charged, as mentioned before, into iron and other substances. Clearly, we found it out yesterday how vortexia can be charged into a piece of fruit. And you can take that vortexian current energy and put it in yourself, and it causes your vortex and all the smaller vortexes within your bigger vortex to line up, right? Get y'all some of that good vortexian juice up in you. Vortexia can be charged, as before mentioned, into iron and other substances. When it is charged in iron, it is called magnetism. When charged in phosphorus, it is called light, inactive. When charged in nitrate of silver, it is called darkness. If its application be continued on phosphorus, the latter will combine with common air and ignite. With phosphorus and without it, it will, as before stated, combine oxygen and hydrogen and will also separate them. And yet, vortexia, in fact, is no substance or thing as such, but is the vortex in axial or orbitic motion, or in other words, corpore in an etheric solution. As previously stated, F holdeth corpore in solution, which is the condition of atmosphere in the Etherian regions beyond. When a portion of this solution is given in a rotary motion, it is called a vortex. Nor is a vortex a substance or thing of itself more than is a whirlwind or a whirlpool in the water. As a whirlpool cannot exist without oh, that makes it easy to understand. Listen to this. As a whirlpool cannot exist without water, or a whirlwind exists without air, so cannot a vortex exist without the etheric solution. As previously stated, in the beginning of a vortex, it is long, but in course of time, it hath a tendency to become round like a globe, but flatten a little at the poles. I can see that. I can see that with tornadoes. I can see that with whirlwinds, letting water out the tub or the sink, and I can see that. Okay, listen. As a whirlpool cannot exist without water, or a whirlwind exists without air, So cannot a vortex exist without the etheric solution. As previously stated, in the beginning of a vortex, it is long, but in course of time, it hath a tendency to become round like a globe, but flattened a little at the poles. This also happeneth to every vortex that carrieth a satellite, that the periphery of the vortex is undulated, and the extent of its undulation can be determined by the minimum and maximum distance of the satellite from its planet. In consequence of this discrepancy, the lens power of the vortex of the Earth varies constantly, even daily, monthly, and yearly. And let's just be honest here. How many of y'all was reading this on your own would y'all just read through all of this? Getting through here, starting, it almost puts you in the mind frame you get into when you're reading the thus thou arts and the begats and such begat, who just sound like a bunch of blah, blah, blah. What? Let's skip this and move to the next part that I understand. It is so important that you do not skip this stuff. Daryl, shalom, shalom. Look, we all still trying to process this, Audrey. We're going to have to read this a few times, which is why once we get to the end of this, and we didn't taking it all in, well, this will be my first time getting all the way through it, process it a little bit, then we got to go through it again, right? By the time we go through it a second time, reading it again, page for page, starting at 1, going all the way to page 875, right? We should understand a little bit more, and we'll read it with understanding simply because all the stuff we ran into when we was researching the first time going through. So things make sense, and then things that we didn't catch the first time, just kind of kept reading, we're going to catch the second time, and so on and so forth. And more examples we'll be able to see before our eyes, and we'll be able to put things together, and the understanding will come as we continue to study and walk this road of searching for truth, right? And experimenting, testing, right? Seeing if these things be true. Like New Testament calls them Bereans, right? Bereans were those who didn't just let you tell them anything, right? There's like, you know what? We're going to take what you done told us, and we're going to go look into these things, and we'll be back, and we'll know if you're a fraud or not. We're going to go test and see if these things be true or not. Audrey said, laugh out loud. I feel like I need this broken down in very simple terms. Math and science is not my thing. I do not need my hands on. I need a hands-on class. Look, math and science is not my thing. I would love it to be my thing, and I'm reading it, and I'm sitting here just thinking of how inadequate I am to be reading this to somebody else when I have problems with fractions. Listen, I ain't talking about getting to the equations, figuring out formulas. I'm talking about starting fractions that my kids start doing, and like, shucks, I think they start teaching them fractions in 3rd grade now. I'm just like, oh, buddy, we both need help. We're going to both enroll into Sylvan. No, seriously. I have my children now. For the whole math portion, I'm like, we need some help here, right? Because all my YouTube and Googling and this, we need somebody else that's going to break this down. And some of the stuff we're looking at that I got, I'm like, yeah, nope, you ain't helping me. We both need to sit in here and listen to your Sylvan tutor teach you this the right way. Look, okay, no, seriously. We really do have math tutors to help fix these portions that I done screwed up. Listen, okay. Let me go back and read 13 again. It's really long, but I'm going to read it again. As previously stated, F holdeth corpora in solution, which is the condition of atmosphere and of the Ethereal regions beyond. When a portion of this solution is given in a rotary motion, it is called a vortex. Nor is a vortex a substance or thing of itself more than is a whirlwind or as a whirlpool in the water. As a whirlpool cannot exist without water, or a whirlwind exists without air, so cannot a vortex exist without the etheric solution. As previously stated, in the beginning of a vortex, it is long, but in course of time, it hath a tendency to become round like a globe, but flattened a little at the poles. This also happened to every vortex that carrieth a satellite, that the periphery of the vortex is undulated, and the extent of its undulation can be determined by the minimum and maximum distance of the satellite from its planet. In consequence of this discrepancy, the lens power of the vortex of the Earth varies constantly, even daily, monthly, and yearly. Nevertheless, the sum of heat and cold, and the sum of light and darkness are nearly the same, one generation, 33 years with another. This was by the ancient prophets called the first rule in prophecy. Oh, I was reading about, she talked about this, the first rule of prophecy. Oh, listen, for all my brethren and sister in here that carries the title of prophet, this would be a good resource for you. Not just this, but using this book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, and through here some other books. Listen, you ain't no real prophet if you don't understand like the atmosphere and vortex. I'm coming to learn this, right? We do such an injustice to true prophecy that it make you want to go outside your house and spit on the ground, right? Seriously, because what we call them, listen, like people is hitting and missing. We have so many misses on prophecy that it's I want to say it's pathetic, because we don't understand some things that's now. I'm like, this should be basic information for all of us, right? If you don't understand this, there is nowhere in the world, first of all, that you can verify that your prophecy that you're hearing from another, right? Listen, if you was a true prophet, my G, a true prophet, you wouldn't even wait to hear something from a spirit, right? You would be trained. And this is the way I'm understanding that the Creator wants those who prophesy to do it. You have some major education and understanding that needs to happen to make sure you're prophesying correctly, right? So we're going to get there, y'all. We're going to get there. So I used to, listen, hold on, before I start jumping around to different stories and my encounters with different types of prophets, even growing up in my family, going to this, it was like a little Bible study, but it was a group of people that actually called it the School of the Prophets. That was some good, you was taught some good spiritual, some good basic things, right? And people had spiritual gifts, prophecy, seeing into their gifts were present. I can't deny that, right? But I'm talking to them specifically about prophecies that people give, like dumb stuff, like that the Father really doesn't really care about for real. Now that I'm understanding this, first of all, he ain't worried about this. He basic stuff we should know to be able to provide for ourselves. He is not going to prophesy to you about no house or no car or no job. First of all, we'll just put these in categories. This is dumb. Right? You shouldn't even have to tell anybody this. This is like basic information that's like kindergarten. Let's just say daycare, right? Daycare level information. It's like, but I can see why people do it, because we are so far removed from the truth that it's like it's a bunch of freaking spiritual babies out here and we don't understand crap. I mean, I understand a little bit more than I did before, but I'm still like in this category of like baby. But this whole prophecy thing, what this is breaking it down to, and like Daryl just said, prophecy is mathematics. I'm just like, yo, listen. In order to be able to prophesy correctly, you just have to know some things. And she like breaks this down in here, like the first rules in prophecy, the second rule in prophecy, and lining up, literally going back to OAHSPE, pointing it out and just giving examples. I was like, holy crap. I'm like, somebody need to make something to call all the prophets together, and all of y'all is going to be put in a false prophecy bucket. Everybody. That's why some of these crazy prophecies don't come to pass, because first of all, like I said, if you was a true prophet, you wouldn't have to wait to hear something. You would already be trained, right? This is like it's like a prophet, that's like a trade, something you got to study. You actually have to do, and you have to be able to discern. And if you're hearing other voices or you hearing from the spiritual realm, you have the ability to hear. You have to make sure that you ain't being led astray by somebody who just taking on a persona of the father, right? Because the father, he'll keep his mouth shut. Like, son, go figure this out. You can do this, daughter. You can go do this. I'm going to step back and I'm going to let you work through this. Trial and error. You can do it. Pay attention to everything that you've learned. Bring all the information along with you. Learn how to solve this equation. I'm just like this. Y'all, I went to sleep at 3 o'clock this morning. A little bit after 3 o'clock this morning. Just kind of going through this and looking, just thinking about different things that was prophesied and just like all of this stuff. I'm like, holy crap. Like I literally could not say. I had to make myself put this stuff down and go to sleep. Like I'm still trying to process it all. Let me get back to this. Look. Hold up. Verse 14, page 503. In consequence of this discrepancy, the lens power of the vortex of the earth varies constantly, even daily, monthly, and yearly. Nevertheless, the sum of heat and cold and the sum of light and darkness are nearly the same, one generation, 33 years with another. This was by the ancient prophets called the first rule in prophecy. This was again subdivided by 3 into 11 years, whereof it was found that 11 years nearly corresponded with another 11 years. This was the second rule in prophecy. The third rule was 99 years, whereunto was added 1 year. Excuse me. In the case of the tides, as a matter of fact, real quick before we go, so just in case you have the book, it is, hold on, so you can go there, the chapter, I didn't even highlight it, it was, it's the quickening chapter, the quickening. Matter of fact, the book is called Time of the Quickening. There's a chapter in here that starts on there we go. Page 167, right? Look, and even the chapter before this, it gets into the vortex. It's called This Old World, right? And she has diagrams and stuff going through here. Some of the ones you've seen in OAHSPE, but some of the other ones, she'll draw it out and she'll just kind of explain it a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is good. And the great serpent, I like this drawing that she has in here. But it's like the alignment of the planets and how they're aligned. But she even breaks that down where 666, what we know it as today, is completely off. And the beast they're looking for is some human figure, a spiritual entity to possess somebody and be the satanic antichrist. When it is that is so far off from what it was in original mathematics. That's why they can't prophesy correctly, because they don't even understand the numbers, right? They done took numbers and time periods and changed them into people and places and all kinds of crazy foolishness. I'm like, yo, everybody needs to go back to kindergarten. We don't need to test nobody because everybody dumb. Start everybody at the beginning. We're going to start with the letter A, the number 1, right? Listen, this is y'all, this is good. It breaks this down and she goes through she gives like a little bit of history on what the original numbers and the beast is and like all this other stuff, right? So that's, the quickening chapter starts on page 167, but don't skip ahead. Like you can, but read it from the beginning so you can have all of that together, right? Uncle JB, shalom. Okay, let's go back. Okay, verse 15. On page 504, in the case of the tides, a still further allowance of 6 years was found necessary to 200 years, but in the succeeding 400 years, a deduction was required of 5 years, whereupon the moon's time was 18 years. As the lens of power loseth by flattening the vortex and increaseth by rounding the vortex, it will be observed that the position of the moon's vortex relatively to the Earth's is a fair conclusion as to the times of ebb and flood tide in periods of 33 years. Therefore, tables can be constructed expressing very nearly the variations of vortexia for every day in the year, and to prophesy correctly as to the winters and summers so far as light and darkness and heat and cold are concerned. This flattening and rounding of the vortexian lens of the earth is one cause of the wonderful differences between the heat of one summer compared with another, and of the difference in the coldness of winters as compared with one another. Of these also tables can be made. Winter tables made by the ancients were based on periods of 666 years. 666, right? She definitely gets into this. Listen. Winter tables made by the ancients were based on periods of 666 years and were called Satan's tables, or the times of the beast. Tables made on such a basis are superior to the calculations made on the relative position of the moon. I just thought about something. Yeah, they took the 666 time period, and made it into a man, just like they did like the Ark of Noah. They took that time period and made it into a man. The Holy Bible is famous for this. Listen. But where they have, let me go back. Listen. Winter tables made by the ancients were based on periods of 666 years and were called Satan's tables, or the times of the beast. Tables made on such a basis are superior to calculations made on the relative position of the moon. But where they have prophesied ebb and flood tide to be caused by certain positions of the moon, they have erred in suffering themselves to ignorantly believe the cause lay with the moon. A man may prophesy by a traveling wagon what time it will reach town, but the correctness of his prophecy does not prove that the wagon pushed the horse to town. I'm gonna read that again. I like that with a different highlighter. Look, hold on. What you say? First time, shalom, shalom. Oh, Daryl, I like that. Look, he said prophecy starts with understanding the consequence of conditions. That is so good. That is so good. Listen, Great Spirit, shalom, shalom. Listen, verse 17, page 504. But where they have prophesied ebb and flood tide to be caused by certain positions of the moon, they have erred in suffering themselves to ignorantly believe the cause lay with the moon. A man may prophesy by a traveling wagon what time it will reach town, but the correctness of his prophecy does not prove that the wagon pushed the horse to town. These revelations pertain more to the cause of things. Look, listen. You read ahead and you just understand this. Look, hold on. This is so good. Hold on. Mommy. I'm so ecstatic and elated about this chapter because, yes. Sorry, put that in there for her. Because I studied prophecy for a little while, right? Like really looking at, like, years ago, while developing my gifts, it would baffle me. Not necessarily, maybe not baffle is the right word. I would wonder about some people who would give prophecy, who are not called prophets, those who call themselves prophets and give prophecies. But I also look at those who call themselves psychic and all the other names of they call it labeled New Age or whatever, or on the left-handed path, how they're able to do the same things, right? And so I began to look into this. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting, right? And so I will also wonder, I would often wonder why. I get it really comes to accountability and really understanding things, right? And some people who can prophesy and get, at least from what I've seen, not everybody, like a lot of people though, it's like when they prophesy, it's like what's the word I want to use? They'll do it like in full faith of what they heard. Or like if the prophecy comes to pass, they all for it, but they're astonished and they're at a loss, and like they're seeking God as to why a different prophecy that they spoke and didn't come to pass. Right? This is a whole thing in the church or whatever. People just say, "Oh, you just missed it," but now I realize this literally is a whole science to prophecy, and most of the people out there prophesying are literally novices and have no understanding whatsoever about what they're doing. And the information they could be getting, it may not be from the Father himself. It could be from another one of our brethren or sistren who has lost their body, who are now in the S world, in the spiritual world, and they're giving you information. And they will give you correct information. That's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, it's a real prophecy to come to pass. I beg to differ now. Because a lot of false prophecies, or what some prophecies that come to pass, I would label false prophecies because of where it came from. And it's not, that is not a good term to say if it comes to pass, then it was true. Or no, it is absolutely not, right? That could happen and could lead you further in delusion. If that prophecy that you heard, which comes from a place of falseness, if it comes to pass, it's going to drive you deeper into your delusion. Yo, that's why we really have to understand what's going on, not get all out there in our emotions, have somebody lay their hands on us and think, oh, we got the gift now, we're going to prophesy. Ooh, you better not lay your ignorant hands on nobody in my vicinity, because I'm apt to say something to you, right? Which is why, while still in the throes of going to church a lot, when they would have altar calls and stuff like that, I was really slow to move to an altar call because I didn't want nobody laying their hands on me. And I definitely would not allow them to touch my children. Ain't nobody putting their hands on my children, gonna prophesy nothing to them. And if I do let you, it's because I know you and I know your spirit. And I'll let you say a prayer, bless them or whatever. But don't you put your hands on their head. Don't you put your hands on their head, right? I'm really, you can say sensitive, but I'm really overprotective spiritually of those put into my care. I really am. You know, I don't want anybody leading anybody astray, myself included. Because if I say something ignorantly and I realize I was wrong, I'm like, excuse me. You remember when I had said, yeah, I was wrong. I'm gonna come back immediately and say something. Look, okay, listen to this. Hold on. Let's go back. I'm just rattling off stuff now. Okay. A man may prophesy by a traveling wagon what time it will reach town, but the correctness of his prophecy does not prove that the wagon pushed the horse to town. These revelations pertain more to the cause of things than to giving new prophecies. What mortals cannot discover by any corporal observation must come by inspiration. What mortals cannot discover by any corporal observation must come by inspiration. And a lot of times we're looking for spiritual inspiration before we done exhausted all corporal resources to give a correct prophecy. Tabitha, shalom, shalom. These revelations pertain more to the cause of things than to giving new prophecies. What mortals cannot discover by any corporal observation must come by inspiration. In the year 4 BK, Leverrier of France prophesied the existence of Neptune by the calculation of planetary disturbances. Other discoveries have been made in the same way, whereupon they have believed the said disturbances to be called by one planet's power on another. So let's go back up. At the beginning of this sentence, in the year 4 BK, or 4 years before Cosmon, there's a letter G. So we're going to hop over to page 515. And letter G says, Leverrier predicted the existence of Neptune in 1846, 4 BK, 1882 edition. Again, this implies Cosmon began in 1850, or the text should read 2 BK, because elsewhere in the text indicates that Cosmon began in 1848. Those are dads. Leave them alone. Okay, back to page 504, verse 18. Planetary disturbances are not caused by any power or effect of one planet on another. The cause of disturbances lieth in the vortices wherein they float. Mortals cannot see the vortices. Their only means of prophesying lieth in corpore. A man may prophesy of the moon by calculations of the disturbances of the tides, but to attribute the tides to the cause of the moon's position would be no more erroneous than to attribute the cause of the tides to the moon. It is not the intention in these revelations to give new calculations in regard to the occurrences on the planets. It is a trifling difference whether a man prophesy by a vortex or by a planet, wherein he erreth in regarding to judging the cause of things. He should be put on the right road. There it says it again, right? We should understand. In order to prophesy correctly, you have to understand the cause of things, right? Listen, here's a simple one. I can prophesy to you that if you stay on a meat carnivorous diet, pretty soon down the road, your body is going to begin to break down, right? And you may develop some intestinal tract issues. You can make it sound so good too if you understand the cause of things, right? It's like, oh my God, this was prophesied to me. Oh my G, first of all, you ignorant of what you're doing. You could listen, if you understand the cause of things prophesied to you, you can undo or you can correct by understanding the cause of things. So if you know that the cause of meat will destroy your body, what you gonna do to reverse the death sentence? Somebody just pretty much prophesied on you. Keep eating meat, bro. You're gonna go to an early grave. Understand the cause of things. Stop eating meat. Take some of that good Vortexian currents from fruits and veggies and consume them. Reverse the curse. Clear out them arteries, right? Because eating a meat-rich diet will clog your arteries. But taking some of that Vortexian current from fruits and veggies will cause that clogged artery, all that clogged up thickness of fat, it'll cause that to begin to melt, right? And you won't have to have a stent put in your heart and your arteries or nothing, right? Get some Vortexian current flowing within within your current that you cause to die, right? Because if you're taking things that have no Vortexian current, which are dead things, what you think is eventually going to do? It's going to dull your body inside and out. Matter of fact, it's going to start inside first. Ain't nobody know that you're the walking dead, right? We don't even see the symptoms. But I can look at you and how you eat, and I can prophesy you might die early death, bro. And you can look just as good as you want to look, right? But if I look and see how you eating, I can prophesy your death, right? You got that. I'm glad. Who said that again? Let me go back up. Clearly, OAHSPE says it, but somebody said it before we even got to it. Hold on. I gotta go back up. First time I don't do prophecy. It scares me to be right. Listen, hold on. Who said it? I'm just going back up. Daryl Jackson, correct. Prophecy starts with understanding the consequence of conditions, right? That's exactly what this is saying. Look. Okay. Let me go back. Verse 19, page 504. It is not the intention in these revelations to give new calculations in regard to occurrences on the planets. It is a trifling difference whether a man prophesy by a vortex or by a planet, wherein he erreth in regarding to judging the cause of things, he should be put on the right road. Wherein he erreth in regard to judging the cause of things, he should be put on the right road. Just this one more time, right? 30 times a charm. Wherein he erreth in regard to judging the cause of things, he should be put on the right road. Wherein he hath no knowledge of the forces and currents of the unseen worlds and their dominion over the seen worlds, revelation can only reach him. They have said there are 5 elements of corpore, then again 60 and 100. But in time they will say there are millions, and yet all of them are comprehended in the word corpore. To resolve them, discover them, and classify them, and their combinations is the work of man. Where they are aggregated together as the earth, the result is called a creation or a created world. When such a globe is dissolved in eth and sublimated, it is said a world is destroyed or a star is destroyed. Nevertheless, in any of these operations, no one ingredient as such is annihilated. What is creation more than to make a drop of rain, or the dissolution of a world more than an evaporation of a drop of water? Pour a few drops of water on a table covered with dust, and each drop will become a globe. Look for them tomorrow, and they are gone, evaporated. The globe is annihilated, for it was not a thing in fact, but the water, which was the thing, is not annihilated, but evaporated. The term annihilation applieth to such as are not things in fact, but which are forms and figures. A ray of light, so called, can be annihilated, but that comprised it cannot be annihilated. Were the earth's vortex to break, the earth would be precipitated into dissolution under ordinary conditions. But were the earth's vortex to be swallowed in the vortex of another planet, then the earth would be precipitated as a globe to such planet. Such is the case as regardeth double stars and triplets and quadruplets, especially where they are in contact. The same principle holdeth in regard to the vortices of some nebula and comets. One is frequently swallowed up within another, but in such case the corpore commingleth. In the case of double stars and triplets and so on, if conjoined, the center of gravitation, so called, is not to each one, but to the intervening center between them. The polarity of such a group is as the vortex. Think not, however, that double stars or triplets or quadruples are the limit of combinations in one vortex. There are clusters of planets, hundreds of them, thousands and even millions that sometimes occupy one vortex. As a globe can be annihilated, so can a vortex, and so can vortexia, for none of these are things of themselves in fact, but combination in some given place or condition, but the corpore of such expression of known forms and figures and motions cannot be annihilated. Though the general form of a vortex, as before stated, in its beginning is long, funnel-shaped like a whirlwind, its ultimate is toward a globular form. And though the current of a vortex is spiral, at first its currents ultimate toward less spirality. If one could imagine a very long serpent in spiral form, constantly turning its head in at one pole and its tail at the other, and forever crawling upon its own spirality, such a view would somewhat illustrate the currents of a vortex. See plates 42 and 44. That is back in God's Book of Being, 42. 44, yep, okay. The cyclic core, yeah, that's what it's in what's called. Okay, so this is plate 42, the arrowhead vortex. And see the vortex is within the bigger vortex. This is plate 42. And this has remember it has some of the planets listed under it. Those planets are Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, Earth, and the Sun. And plate 44 is the cyclic coil, and that's on page 483. This right here. Back on page 505, it says, in one plate, plate 24, the black center representeth a planet, and the black spot with the letter S representeth a satellite. So let me flip to page plate 24. Okay. On page 465. Here, this one right here at the bottom. And I posted all these pictures so you can go back over the last couple days in a community section, and you will see all of these plates. Okay. In one plate, plate 24, the black center representeth a planet, and the black spot with the letter S representeth a satellite. The white lines indicate the course of the vortexian currents, but purposely exaggerated in the drawing. First, to show the undulation in the vortex where the satellite resteth, and secondly, to show the head turning in at one end and the bulge of the tail ready to overlap itself, wherefrom there is an excess of light manifested in the tail, or the northern regions. Where the currents of the vortex were the currents of the vortex to attain due east and west lines without polar outcropping, the winds would cease to blow on the face of the earth. The air and the air and the earth would ultimate in equilibrium in axial revolution. Let me read that again. Were the currents of the vortex to attain due east and west lines without polar outcropping, the winds would cease to blow on the face of the earth. The air and the earth would ultimate in equilibrium in axial revolution. We got 2 more verses to read. And since we're at 1 hour and 32 minutes, we're going to pause. This chapter is only 29 verses, but it took so long to read through. Okay, these verses are extremely long. Okay. Verse 28. Herein lieth the cause of the winds chiefly. Nevertheless, high mountain ranges of irregular forms and places on the earth's surface add considerably to breaking and changing the currents that would otherwise result. The transcendent heat of the tropical atmosphere would seem to call for replacement from the north and south by cold currents of the wind. It must be remembered that only a few miles up from the earth, the temperature of the tropical air is as low as the polar air. Only so far as icebergs float toward the equator is there any very perceptible lowering of the temperature of the air and of the wind currents toward the tropics. Last verse. Verse 29, page 505. As previously stated, in describing the positive current of vortexia being in the form of a right angle triangle with the angle in the center of the earth and one leg toward the North Pole and one in the east at the equator, it will now be perceived that the greatest cold region of the earth cannot be at either the equator or the poles, but must occupy places distant from the poles in the exact ratio of the difference in the power between the positive and negative currents of vortexia and vortexia and corresponding to the atmospheric lens of the earth. Yeah, that just sounded like a math word problem. I'm going to have to go read that again because that sounded like if Ben had 4 coins and he wanted to offer you 12, then the ice cream truck rolled down the street, beeped the horn 4 times. How much would the push pop cost? And I would answer green. Like, I'm like, ugh, I should have paid attention in math class. Now, because I didn't pay attention, I got to go back to the basics and learn all this stuff again. Well, I'm supposed to be answering with numbers. I'm answering with colors. I'm supposed to be answering the question. I'm asking questions. I mean, that's, necessarily a bad thing, because if you need to give an answer and you're not clear, you need to ask some questions for clarity. I'm just like, how did I even get out of school? How did I even make it out of school? All right, y'all. So that is it for today. Let me put this page number 505. All right. So the title gonna definitely be something with prophecy or something in here there. I just gotta figure it out. I gotta figure it out. But I'm glad y'all hung out this long. I did not think it was gonna take this long on a Monday. Trying to stick with the hour time frame. But like, if we're in the middle of a chapter, I'm not going to cut the chapter short unless there's like, y'all forbid, there's an emergency or something here and I have to cut it short. But I would like to at least finish the chapter, that we can, it may not be completing the full thought of what's being said, but at least it's a good breaking point, right? Okay. So with that being said, Father, help me. That is, help me to understand where I'm missing it at, where I can put these things together. Like I just got to read over and over again, But that was selfish. That was selfish because that's not. Listen, okay, Father, you are magnificently, extremely detailed, and your mathematical genius mind astounds me every time I read words that you said, and the brains that you have given to us to even comprehend. Like, we can comprehend this. We just got to apply a little bit of effort and time to it. But you are amazing with your creations. How you created us is absolutely amazing. Help us to pull it together. All right, y'all. Look. Francis, shalom, shalom. The first one looked like an Oklahoma tornado vortex. You must have been talking about the cyclic jank one. Hold on. You talking about this one? This one right here.
Mommy, Daddy.
Yes. Amen.
Mom, Mommy.
You definitely gonna make it plain to us, but we definitely have to put in the work, right? Because a lot of time we think this is why. Listen, y'all hear me say a lot, man. Why you gotta get everything to me like it's a freaking puzzle? Like I gotta figure it out? Because that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. That's how we grow, and the Father makes sure that He put out a good product. There's a process and a learning curve that all of us have to go through and develop through, right? To be able to be clear. Like some stuff I'm completely fuzzy on, right? I mean, I got a lot of work to do going through these different phases and learning all this stuff and understanding the order and the conditions and why they exist. It's like in science, no, I ain't want to say trial and error.
Mom.
It's another term
Mommy.
that they use. Yes.
Daddy is watching you.
He's watching me on his phone. Hey, Daddy, you watching me? I'm about to come see you. All right, y'all. Look, but that's it. That's it. I can't think of the term. Hold on, Tootie. Hold on. Yeah, you can end it. Hold on. Y'all, it is Monday, August the 22nd, 2022, day 192 of year 4, reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. Another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1210. And we read pages 501 to 505 in the book of Cosmogony and Prophecy. We'll pick it back up here tomorrow. Everything I said I was going to share yesterday, I shared. It was a little late by the time I got done sharing everything because, frankly, I took an early nap. So I got some of that stuff out late, but nevertheless, it's there. Girl, close your mouth. You need to put on some comments. But with that being said, if I find something else, I'll share it with y'all, right? And whatever y'all find out, help a sister out. Post it, comment, send me an email. Some stuff that I'm stumbling on, if you got clarity on other things, send it to me. Or just share it in the community section under something. Help everybody out. All right, with that being said, beautiful people, I love y'all. I will see y'all back here tomorrow, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead and end it, girl.